The Popcast brothers, yes, they did a video talking about Stargate, and we have to have a chat about it. Welcome to SciTrek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. So I think it's fair to say the video that Popcast did yesterday on their Unleashed channel was a little negative. They actually said that at the moment, they would rather that Amazon just didn't do Stargate. That the people in charge at Stargate at the moment, mainly Jennifer Salke, just isn't the right person for this, and they're going to ruin it. Now, they actually did talk a lot about how they've got a new source on the Stargate story and how they feel that a new project is right around the corner. It is about to be announced, and that the fans are not going to like what they're planning. Now, at the moment, they haven't actually gone as far as saying what those plans are. But if you're a regular SciTrekker, I think you'll have a rough idea. So let's actually go through a couple of the points that they made on the video. A couple of areas where they actually did get things right, and a couple of areas where I feel they got things wrong. And then we'll have a chat about what I think about the probability of Amazon actually being able to do a good show really are. So first of all, they talked about how this new source has told them that before Mark Fergus pitched for the new Stargate franchise, a new TV show, the Amazon actually had a plan for the show that it would appear on MGM Plus, and they would have a budget of $1 million an episode. Now, I went nuts when I heard this because I've never heard that rumor before, and like I say, you guys know that I've been pretty much on top of this from day one with Stargate. So I was surprised. I was more surprised because the number is ludicrous. And to be fair to the podcast guys, they said as much on their video that this number of $1 million an episode is just stupid. It can't be done. A show could not be made, particularly a sci-fi show, could not be made for that money. Let's remember that SG-1, when it was first aired all those years ago, had a budget of just under $1 million an episode, all the way back then. And that was such a poor amount of money even then that actually they had to steal some of the special effects from the movie and cut them into their show, particularly like the Death Guider swiping in and things. And they had to actually repeatedly do that through the first season because they couldn't afford their own special effects. Now, some aspects of CGI, etc., are actually now cheaper. So it is actually in some ways cheaper to produce TV shows than it was all those years ago. But making a brand new show, building sets, hiring sound stages, etc., for a budget of $1 million an episode, where you will probably only be making 10 episodes, so $10 million is just ridiculous. To put that in context, the Rings of Power that Amazon did cost £1 billion squillion an episode. Probably. It was a lot. The new Avatar series on Netflix, the not the blue Avatar, the windy Avatar guy, is going to be around $15 million an episode. Things like Jack Reacher and us to cost about $7 to $8 million an episode, and even The Expanse, which didn't have a big, really base of audience, was between $3 and $8 million an episode. It averaged between 3 and 5, to be fair, but some of the episodes that were bigger went up to 8. So a series, a sci-fi series, even going on MGM Plus, only costs $1 million an episode, is impossible. Now, when they started getting pitches, we know that Mark Fergus pitched, and actually they mentioned this on Popcast yesterday because this was information I gave them 7 or 8 months ago, that when Mark Fergus was pitching, he was asking for a budget in and around $10 million an episode. Now, the way it works with budgets on TV shows is, look, the studio might come in with this TV show, say, look, we want to do it for this sort of money, and then they negotiate. The guys developing the TV show, then the showrunner will sort of say, well, look, for this money, we can do this. If you give us a bit more money, we can do this, blah, blah, blah. They negotiate. Now, Mark Fergus, the guy that did The Expanse for Amazon, was negotiating to develop and then showrun the new Stargate franchise. He was asking for $10 million an episode, but they were negotiating. Now, I know for a fact that the figure Amazon came back with was $5 million an episode initially, and they were negotiating to average out at about $7.5 to $8 million an episode. Now, that is doable money, especially considering the current climate where all of the streaming services are desperately trying to cut their costs. They're desperately trying to decrease budgets. And basically, across the board, they're looking at a 25% decrease in normal budgets. Now, if you think of Star Trek being on average about $10 million an episode, Stargate, we would hope, would have roughly the same sort of budget. $7.5 million, considering the current climate, is about right. Now, on Popcast, they actually then said that the pitch from Mark Fergus was dismissed by Amazon because they were pitching too high, because they were saying it was going to cost too much money. Now, that isn't true. Negotiations with Mark Fergus, again, if you're a regular SciTrek, you already know this, ended around December time, actually literally just before Christmas. And it is true that part of the reason why the negotiations ended was because of budget. But it was also because Amazon just couldn't decide what they wanted to do. Was it a TV show? Was it a movie? Would it go on MGM Plus? Would it go on Amazon Prime? All of these things that Mark Fergus was asking, all of these very sensible things that he needs to know because he needs to develop the show to match what Amazon actually then want, he was not getting an answer for. Now, we have since found out that it looks like we're going to be getting a movie. There is a bit more to that, which is going to be following in another video. But it looks like that Jennifer Salke wants to do 5 or 6 cinematic movies a year, and the budget is already there for that. So she's decided that one of those movies will be Stargate. And she has ordered Claudia Valentini, the new head of film at MGM and Amazon, to start the development work on that and RoboCop. It's that project that we expect to get announced at San Diego Comic-Con or sometime just after, depending on what happens with the strikes. So Popcast news source didn't quite get that right. It was a little bit more complicated. Also, I should say that Mark Ferguson didn't actually lose that pitch. As far as I'm aware, they just amicably decided to come back and speak at a later date. Now, we don't know whether those conversations happened or not, but Mark Fergus and Penguin and Parker, his company, were doing another big project for Amazon. They knew the writer's strike was probably coming, and Amazon asked them to focus on that, and they would return to the Stargate conversation a little later. So, again, the Popcast boys didn't quite get that right. It is nice to know, though, that this source is saying that, yes, Stargate is coming. I'm pretty sure we're at that point now where it's like 99% certain that that is actually true. Now, on Popcast, they mentioned that the project that is about to be announced is one that's not going to be very popular with fans. Now, I am assuming that's because Popcast are going to say that this is going to be a movie, and nobody wants a movie. I actually asked you guys on a poll some time ago, and actually 91% of you basically said you want a TV series. Only 9% of you said a movie would be cool. So 90% of the Gators, and that was nearly 2,000 people answered that poll, by the way, but 90% of Gators don't want a film. Speaking to you guys, I know that you guys think, and I agree with you, that a film is a massive risk. If it fails, it kills the franchise before it even gets really started. Also, there's a big gap between SGU ending and Stargate restarting. A movie that will only be maybe 2 hours has an awful lot of questions to answer. And can they do it in a satisfying way? I suspect not. So yes, I agree that there is going to be an announcement very, very soon. And that announcement is not going to be very popular. But if you're a regular SciTrekker, I'm hoping you're aware of that. You're ready for that announcement now. And I actually think a lot of you have warmed to the idea of a movie because at least we're getting something. And in a way, it does show that Amazon are really determined to actually push forward with the Stargate franchise and put their money behind it. Because at the end of the day, this whole nonsense story, to be honest, about $1 million an episode is not showing any confidence. Now, we know from talking to people like Jenny Stiven, who used to work at Stargate Command, etc., that Amazon really do consider this to be a tentpole franchise. That meaning a big project, something that really is important, something they're going to hold other things off. Now, I was telling you guys that a year ago that Amazon really did consider this to be important. I was telling you guys that even before that, when Brad Wright was still involved, before the sale went through, because Amazon were the potential customer for Brad Wright's project. It was Amazon that were going to MGM and saying, we would love you guys to make us a Stargate show. It was one of the main reasons why Amazon bought MGM in the first place. I do not believe this rumor for a second that they even considered $1 million an episode, considering how much they overpay for everything else. And that was one of the Popcast brothers' other big points. They do overpay. As I say, Rings of Power cost £1 billion squillion pounds every single episode. Wheel of Time, again, was very expensive. Citadel, $25 million an episode, and it was a complete failure. So, yes, I imagine if this show is going to be going straight to MGM, that they would be asking for a much lower budget, a point Mark Fergus made during the negotiations. $1 million episode? No. $3 to $5 million an episode as an opening bid? Now, that I could see. The budget for the Billy the Kid was probably MGM Plus's biggest or main show right now that they actually make, is budgeted between $3 to $5 million an episode. And I could see them trying to pitch Stargate at something similar. But then the negotiations would happen and they would probably get a little bit more money. However, it doesn't look like that is now the plan. So we can move on from that. The Popcast brothers, though, were making the point that Jennifer Salke is not a popular figure right now with fans. She was in charge when the whole Rings of Power cock-up was all greenlit. She was in charge when Wheels of Time was greenlit, and that has also been a bit of a mess. So we cannot trust Jennifer Salke to do this. Or can we? Yes, okay, she was in charge when Citadel was put forward. But Citadel was a TV project that was pitched by the Russo brothers, the guys that had just had, that little bit of success over at Marvel doing things like Endgame. So Jennifer Salke gets approached by the Russo brothers, and they say, we've got this idea for this spy show. It's going to be Bond. It's going to be almost sci-fi. We'd love to make it with Amazon. And Jennifer Salke says, how much do you want? And gave them the money. Now, I don't blame her for doing that, because obviously the Russo brothers had just come off a major success. Amazon Studios getting them to do a TV show for them was a bit of a coup. So, of course, they were going to and then Amazon put their money where their mouth was. Now, the show failed. It's actually crap. But that's not Jennifer Salke's fault, and I completely understand the decision that led to the show being made. But every studio ever has projects where they try and they miss. They hit some stuff, like, The Boys, which is pretty good, even though I'm a little embarrassed to admit it. I love that show. And they miss with some shows. Look at Willow that was just on Disney. Everyone was so excited about that. Everyone thought that was an absolute no-brainer. Do a new Willow TV series. That will be amazing. I was incredibly excited about it. And it was crap. These things do happen at studios, particularly a young studio like Amazon. One of the reasons why they bought MGM was to get the experience of MGM as well as the IP. They want to do better. And they have done better in lots of ways. Because one of the things they didn't mention on Popcast was actually that there's been a lot of good shows through Amazon. The Jack Reacher series was great. The Jack Ryan series was really good. Good Omens was brilliant. I personally love Bosch, the TV series. I think that's great. And let's not forget that they did save The Expanse. And that is one of the best sci-fi shows in the last decade. So Amazon, yes, they get things wrong. They waste money massively. But they also do get some things right. And the important thing here is nothing has actually been announced. We don't know who's going to be show running or directing if it's a movie. We don't know who's going to be doing the development work. If they do get Penguin and Parker to come and do the development work for this, then I think it's going to be bloody brilliant. But of course, if they put the wrong people in charge, it's going to be awful. So let's hold off our actual judgment on this until we know a bit more. Now, I put a poll on late last night asking you guys, will Amazon destroy the Stargate franchise. Now, a lot of you think they probably will. I think it was something like 40%. But over 50% of you said, look, let's give it a chance. Let's wait and see. And about 10% of you thought that, yeah, it'll be fine. So let's be honest about this. We need to wait and see. Let's not do what a lot of people on YouTube and a lot of fans did to the Rings of Power. They destroyed it before it had even come out. Now, Rings of Power was boring, but it was not anything like as bad as a lot of people will tell you it was. And let's really not start the negativity campaign before it's even been officially announced. Please give them a chance to actually do something we love. Because if you go into this deciding this is going to be a woke pile of crap rubbish before you even watch the show, when you sit down to watch it, you will find reasons to hate it. It's psychology. It's basic human emotion. You can't help it. So let's not start the campaign just yet. Let's have a bit of positivity. Let's give Amazon the opportunity to work with MGM and actually do something we can like. Whether it's a movie or a series, or hopefully a movie that turns into a series, let's just be happy we're getting Stargate back. Then later we'll worry about whether it's any good or not. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Popcast brothers have to say. I will let you know as soon as I find out. So guys, get into the comments. What do you think about everything the Popcast brothers said? I will drop a link to the video, by the way, so you can go and check it out for yourself. Do you think he has a point that actually Amazon have not got the best track record and we're scared for our lives here that Stargate is going to get ruined? Or do you actually agree with me and think that actually Amazon have done some good stuff? It depends who they get in to lead the ship. And if they get the right person, we could get something good. And Amazon have a history of putting their money where their mouth is. So we might even get a decent budget to go with it. Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and follow all of these links. They're in the description, and you can go and see lots of fun SciTrek stuff. You can also go to patreon.com/SciTrek, where most of our new videos appear first. And for a small contribution each month that really supports the channel, you get to see them without the adverts. As always, guys, please stay safe. Look forward to Stargate, and I'll see you next time.